All right, we're here with Jeremy Trebas. This is the Undercurrent. Thought maybe we'd snag him for a little while to see how it goes before he goes up to session. How you doing, Jeremy?
Doing fine. You snagged me indeed.
I certainly did. I kind of set you up, didn't I? It was kind
Mm,
of it was a whim,
it
kind
was
of.
a follow me
Ex-
situation.
Yep. So we're going to talk about some of your bills you got coming in, if you don't mind. If you can kind of talk us through some of these, um, and what you think their prospects are, I would definitely appreciate that. That'd be great. So, how do you think your chances are this session is going to be?
Well, I never um, put too much into betting on how well my bills are going to go, but I definitely give them all my best shot and see how far they get. And part of the legislative process is incrementalism, meaning you might try something, the same thing for 2, 4, 8, 10 years, and maybe get farther each time. Which I've had bills that's happened to. I've had bills reach the Supreme Court, and so it's kind of a how far is this bill going to get process. So I don't know. I don't know how to put like a
The thing on success.
likelihood. Yeah. So I just try my best, and I show up in committee and I just work it through the process as best I can. And part of that is making sure you address concerns as you go and talking to people that have to vote on your bills and ultimately get the governor's signature.
Now, I was talking to someone because the Libertarian Party had put in we have a new committee now, and I had to kind of intervene and say, listen, none of them have been up there.
Hmm.
And being up there and seeing how fast things actually move and things you're going from one committee possibly to another, and then you're dancing around. Talk about some of your schedule. What's your schedule kind of really look like when you first hit the ground running up there?
Yeah. So being in the Montana legislature, we're one of, I think, 4 legislatures that meet every 2 years, so biennial. And it's uh, constitutionally, we can meet up to 90 days in a regular session. We could have special sessions too, but the halfway point is 45 days. We go a little past that according to our current calendar, which is up in public on the legislative website. But the halfway point is 45 days, and that's when House bills have to cross over successfully to the Senate or Senate to the House, unless it's a revenue bill. Otherwise, it dies at that point. So, and that's called transmittal. So the midpoint is called transmittal, and that's the 45-day mark in the middle of the 90-day constitutionally limited session.
And that's another thing for anybody who's listening. When he means you can go online and actually find these schedules, you actually it's a little tough though to navigate, as I found when you first find out about these things. So I'll put a link below in this, and so you guys can all go to the link and follow the bills that are up and coming for the next legislature. So you've introduced some bills already. You have this one here. If you'd like to read it for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, this looks like my property tax bill. Um, what this one essentially does, and there's a lot of moving parts to property taxes, and so it's difficult to explain it in a way that you don't have to explain it, another time. But essentially, residential tax rates, if you live in a common home, are 1.35% of their taxable value. So you have a valuation, you have a tax rate. But then it gets messy with mills. Mills are what the government uses to charge you the right amount for your taxable value on your home at that rate. Commercial industrial is another rate, and that's 1.4 times the residential rate according to current law, which we can change, which is what this bill does. So essentially, we take this bill that I have, kind of my flagship bill, takes residential rates to 1%, which Democrats have talked about, but mine's different, and I'll explain why in a second, and takes any commercial property or even residential property that's non-owner occupied. So if you don't live in your home and you have rentals, those are going to go from 1.35 to 1.5. But that 1.89% rate from commercial and industrial is going to go down to 1.5. So any income generating property is 1.5. Any home that you live in, 1% tax rate instead of 1.35 and 1.89. That's only part of the picture. There's a lot more to explain. But what I'm trying to avoid is a shift, because government gets to collect the same dollar amount plus half the rate of inflation no matter what. So someone's going to pay that unless you change the formula in law. And that's what this is trying to do. I'm not trying to shift residential onto business. I'm not trying to play that shell game, which is what Democrats want to do and some moderate Republicans want to do. is play the shell game of what they'll call mitigation, or just lowering the rate on residential to 1% without accounting for that shift. Meaning, government will get the same dollar amount, which is why if you listen closely to what the Democrats propose, yeah, let's play the good guy. Let's lower the rates to 1% for residential. But if you do nothing else, government gets the same dollar amount. They don't have to cut anything. They just collect it from business. And business, what do? They pass that on in their rates that they charge you at the grocery store. So, like, that's a shell game. It's disingenuous, which is why, again, I'm lowering the rates. Government's going to have to take a cut. But hopefully we don't deal with as much of a shift as some of those other plans do.
How does that translate to our wallets as just a layman over here?
Well, I guess there's two ways it can translate. It could translate to actual less dollars paid in property taxes.
Okay, that's good.
Or it could translate to, more likely, less of a increase, which, you know, is you still might pay more, but you might pay less than you would have under somebody else's plan.
Right. Okay, I think that sums it up pretty well. Better than I could have ever. Let's move on to the next one. All right. What do you think about this? Should we move on, or should you want to talk about this one?
Yeah. So this one is so it's titled "Revised Voter Registration Laws to Include Party Preference." What it means is, in Montana, when you go to register to vote, you don't register what party you are. This would allow you to register a party. It doesn't require you to, but if you'd like to register as being associated with a party, you can. And that's basically the simple idea behind this bill, is you can register with a party in the voter rolls if you'd like.
So I can go and register for.
You can be a libertarian on the voter rolls.
On the voter rolls.
Yep, or an independent, or
whichever I want to be.
Other two major parties, which shall so far be unnamed. It's a sensitive topic, I know.
Oh, no, please do. We want to know exactly what's going to be happening up there and how this is going to be.
Register with your tribe.
Do we think we have bipartisan on this? Do you think, have you talked to any of the colleagues, or I know it's early, and have you talked to any of your colleagues up there?
One or two, yeah, just on my side mainly, and mostly someone else who had the same bill, who just called me to make sure I was serious about running the bill, which I am.
Okay.
But no, I always just kind of show up in committee with my bill and they get to judge it on their merits.
Was it like, are you serious, or was it like, okay, are you serious? Let's do it. Which one do you think that was?
I don't think this is so controversial.
Right.
I guess we'll see. You know, you show up in committee and you get curveballs thrown at you live in person, and so we'll see what happens with this. But like, I think the parties want to know who their people are. When they show up at a door, they kind of want to know what flavor they're showing up.
Right.
The parties have their own data, and it's not great.
Would you say it's very data driven when you are calculating these things? I know you're a data driven guy too, so
it's nice to know when you're running a race, it's efficient, and we love efficiency. That way we can cut out the middle. But when I go and sign up, to run for office, I've kind of come down to the point where I don't even look at a list anymore. I just show up at every single door. But I still think it would be nice if we knew a little bit about the person behind that door before we knocked on it.
Yeah. So you need a profile.
It would be nice for the parties, even just to know who's associating with us as a party.
Okay, I get it. All right, there's a couple on here that I really love too. What is this one here? Voters may register. Okay, let's go.
That's the one.
Okay. What about this right here? This is interesting.
Let's see. What did I do with this one? Okay. So this is elected official recall laws. So right now, in Montana code, you have to have a cause. And so where we ran into this was with, to get right down to it, we had a elected clerk and recorder who was stripped of her election administrative duties. And for that, I'd like it to be easier to recall county commissioners, frankly. And for right now, it must be for cause. So as we explored a recall for a county commissioner who was part of that, we found out that the county attorney can get in the middle and defend the county commissioners who are subject to recall.
Oh, okay.
And say, well, you don't really have a cause. And if you have a cause, they get to respond. Now, they still get to respond under this bill, but I'd like to strip out, and this is exactly what I asked the bill drafter to draft up, is This is word for word. I'd like to strip that out and let a cause for recall be anything. No
Okay.
reason to be cited in the petition. So you need a petition for recall. You need a certain amount of, petition signatures, and then you can put that to the ballot and ask for a recall under a certain threshold of votes. But
Can
you're
I
elected for
recall?
political reasons. You should be able to be unelected for political
Yeah.
reasons.
Can I do this for the sheriff's department? For the sheriff, that sheriff's department. Can I?
This would be any elected office.
Any elected office
Any elected
whatsoever.
office,
So any of those that are, I really love this. Have you thought or talked to, again, bipartisanship on this yet, or has this been something that's been
I think
just here it is?
With a lot of the laws that I propose or bills that I propose, I think objectively they're fair to both sides. Like this
Right.
doesn't choose a side.
That's what I like about you.
This
I really
is
do.
right. So this is just like if you're doing a bad job according to the people, and that's political,
Yes.
you shouldn't need any sort of cause like misconduct or embezzlement or like
Right.
if politically people don't like you anymore, you should be subject to recall. And recall is already
agree.
a high bar.
It is.
So it's already difficult enough to recall someone without cause. But with cause, you get the county attorney in the middle kind of meddling with whether or not the petition should be valid or not.
Which can be extremely biased.
Right.
And can be
It goes through
extremely
someone who's on the
invasive.
side of the county commission.
Exactly. And that really does lay into a serious problem we have.
The attorneys for the political whoever is being defended.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I like, and that's what I like about, well, actually love about Jeremy, is that you do stay objective. And when I ask for an answer, I don't get sugar-coated shit. I get the true understanding of what this actually, why it was there, what it's going to look like, and that it was thought out to be a bipartisan kind of understanding that everybody should actually want this.
Fair is fair, and the rules of the game are the rules of the game. And
yes,
I don't know who this is going to apply to in the future, but
no,
it's fair is fair, and I think objectively it's a fair bill. And just seeing what we saw and how it played out, I'm like, you know what, the law needs to change, and objectively, if an elected official is doing a poor job, it's still a high bar to recall them without the for cause piece. So let's remove the for cause piece and equalize the playing field.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, and I think there's a lot of other people out there who are thinking the same way. All right, let's jump down into this one here. Kind of read that out for us, Jeremy. What is it? This is
So this one has to do with, and I worded this one. Well, I should actually probably reference the number, although.
Can you see it? Okay.
Well, I'll just read it. So I said revise MCA, which is Montana Code Annotated, which is our law, state law. 37, that's the title.
Right.
Dash 61-102. So 3761-102 to have members of the bar, and I used the wrong word here, so I had to adjust this with the bill drafter. But to have members of the bar appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. And now members of the bar are any attorney in Montana. But actually, what I meant by this was the disciplinary council, such as the one that judged our attorney general over what I think were political issues on behalf of the Supreme Court.
Yes,
because he said mean things about the Supreme Court. On behalf of the legislature, by the way, doing his job to defend the legislative will. Yeah. And so this would change it, and this is going to be controversial, and some people will say unconstitutional according to our Constitution. But have members of that disciplinary council appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. So the meat of this, though, is it'll affect disciplinary areas such as disbarment and suspension. Mm-hmm. So what the political controversy was that they had to try this a couple times because they kind of had a misfire the first time. But opponents of our current attorney general, who's doing his job to defend the legislature, was subject to disciplinary action by, I would say, activists. Yep. And what happens is if our attorney general doesn't hold a law license, he can't be the attorney general. That was the political play.
Okay.
So we elected him, but because of this political BS, he could have been in legal limbo. And I think that would have really caused a constitutional crisis. So what this does is stabilize that process so that there's the executive branch and the legislative branch involved in a judicial process so that we can protect our attorney general, whoever that is, doesn't have to be Austin, whoever that is, from political malfeasance.
Okay. And again, I think this is something that we need. And
Again,
why
it
would
adds
it?
fairness to the process, and it puts all three branches in the loop.
Now, for everybody, if you're when you're listening to this and you're going to these and you're looking these up, also you're going to go down deeply into like you said, the constitutionality of these things. And there's a process when you are writing these bills that's taken seriously and is looked through, right? I mean, when you send these off and the legal team looks at it and the constitutional scholars look at it, it has a pretty good shot usually, right?
So what can happen, and often does happen, is if there's a bill that someone doesn't like, part of that, you can have a fiscal note. If there's fiscal implications that cost the state money, in a sense. So a fiscal note could be ascribed to something like this. There can be also a legal note. So a legal note means that, one of the lawyers that, work for the legislature can say, what, this might run aground of constitutional issues. And usually the people, they're supposed to be nonpartisan. Mostly they try to be, but I think, living in Helena and you're a lawyer,
Sure.
you're probably usually
Sure.
left to center.
Yeah.
And so, and lawyers are subject to being a part of the bar. And so ultimately, the lawyers that even work for the legislature as bill drafters are subject to Supreme Court oversight in its disciplinary council.
Right.
And so they're always treading on, sand in a sense. But a legal note could be attached to the bill. Doesn't mean we can't pass the bill. Doesn't mean it can't be passed. Most bills have 2 years to be challenged if they are passed on constitutional grounds.
I didn't know that.
Right?
I had no idea about that.
So and so usually if a legal note is put on a bill, it's a good sign that it'll probably be challenged by someone after if it's passed. And
kind of what we've been seeing with these other.
Well, such was my housing. So I had my bill that went to the Supreme Court that was on allowing duplexes to be built by right on single residentially zoned lots.
Okay.
That went to the Supreme Court. It took a year to settle that out.
What was the finding on that?
The Supreme Court said, my bill was legal and constitutional.
Wham.
Which, here's why also, by the way. And that one didn't have a legal note coming through, I don't believe.
Okay.
But, any bill can be challenged. And so it was. And I guess the legislature, the state has the right to charter cities. So cities only exist under the charter of the state.
Okay.
And so, we should have full power over zoning,
right?
Over building code. Legislature, those are states' rights, and states' rights means the legislature.
Right.
The cities exist at the will of the state. And so, that's it's the idea that the government closest to people rules the best, or at least the most accountable.
Right.
We can argue whether that's true or not, but anyway, the legislature of the state has the right to regulate zoning, which is what that bill was about.
Okay. I'm with you. I don't think they should have any say. They don't live here. But what can we do? All right, great. Let's see. Let's go to our next one here. Oh, this has been a hot contentious thing.
Yes.
For the last 2 years?
Forever. Yeah.
You want to talk about this one?
Okay, so Medicaid expansion.
Yeah,
so the history of Medicaid expansion, real quick, came from Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, its official name, which was passed in, I think, 2012. From there, the federal government tried to force states to accept Medicaid expansion as is, and the Affordable Care Act. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. States have to voluntarily opt in.
Okay.
You can't force states to be a part of this program. Montana didn't opt in at first. It missed by a pretty narrow vote the first time it was coming through. I can't remember exactly what year. And then it was passed. I was in the 17th session. It wasn't brought up in the 17th session. So I think it was passed in 15, 19, and it's up for renewal again in this next session in 2025, because that had a 6-year sunset date.
Okay. What's a 6-year sunset date for those who don't know?
So it just means that the legislature gave itself time to allow it to be implemented, but also there would be a sunset date unless this legislature, the next, that legislature at that time, renews it.
Okay.
Permanently or for another sunset date.
Okay.
Medicaid expansion is where the state pays 10% the federal government pays 90% of medical expenses of people on the program.
Okay.
And so the program really expanded, it ballooned really. I was quoting numbers like 120,000 people were on it in 2023, and I was using that to try to sunset it in 2023 early. I think we're down to like 70. The initial estimates, though, were like 45,000, and that was from a fiscal note. So again, going back to fiscal notes, that was the estimate, 45,000. It was 90 for a long time. It ballooned to 120 when during COVID, you couldn't get off government programs easily, actually. And the government couldn't kick anybody off, even if they made too much money.
Right.
And so now I think, again, we're back to like, after what's called redetermination, back to like 70,000 probably working adults, right, on the program, where they don't make enough. They make too much to be on traditional Medicaid.
Right.
And they make too little to really afford the premiums on healthcare.gov ACA.
Okay.
So that's what that is. That's the history. Sorry.
So I'm a small business owner, and I can't afford it. I mean, I can't. I'm trying to afford my own insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I believe in that. So I will work my tail off to make sure that I stay in the private sector of my own understanding. This to me, I'm like, I want to see this gone.
Right. I think
really
that's
do.
a responsible thing, because if you look at our federal debt, so my whole purpose behind trying to sunset it early 2 years ago, and for this bill, which is, this bill is kind of a middle ground in a way. It's contingent on the federal government allowing a waiver for state work requirements and premium payments by the covered person. So that means when it was originally passed, and especially when it was renewed in 2019, there was supposed to be work requirements and slight premium payments by the participants, by the person that was covered. That was done away with by the Biden administration. We didn't get that waiver. So the state had to offer the program without any accountability, really. And that was a bait and switch that even at the time when it was passing in 2019 was being talked about and likely to have occurred. So, I think that was a bait and switch that most people that were paying attention knew was going to happen.
Right.
There's no accountability.
Right.
And so, again, tying Medicaid expansion back to the 90% of that's paid for by the federal government. This program is $1 billion program. And really what it is it's a hospital bailout program. To me, that's what it is to me, is a hospital bailout program. They want to make sure they get paid. They get paid less.
Sure. And
actually with inflation now, they're not even keeping up with this. So the model is broken across the board. But what I get argued with is, if we don't take this money, California's going to get this money, right? It's like, okay, fine. California's irresponsible. We should come up with our own way to sustainably maintain healthcare and healthcare costs in the model. We have to change that as a country. We just do.
Well, what's our debt at? For the sake of the state of Montana.
Right. Well, in the sake of our country, what are we at? Like $1 billion for Montana?
Yeah.
We have 1.1 million people.
Exactly.
And so 70,000 people, $1 billion.
Yeah. It blows our mind. They play with the B word like it's,
I mean, I guess just send more money to Ukraine, I guess. I don't know.
Wow.
It's like,
exactly. They're kind of like, we're kind of like Canada right now. They're taking all their guns and selling
like
them to
10
Ukraine,
Tomahawk missiles, really. I mean,
sure. Why not? Exactly.
But what's our debt at? I don't know. 37 trillion last I heard. I haven't heard.
Not even paying
a while.
The rest of the other stuff.
Was it 40 or 45 trillion now?
Probably was 100 trillion, really, with all interest and everything else.
Oh, pensions. Pensions, yeah.
Pensions too. Yeah,
unfunded liabilities.
Exactly. Yep. And we
it's like Enron, but with state government.
Do you know what type? I mean, does this affect non-for-profits billing and some of those things that are in the socials?
Oh, I suppose. Like if you're a healthcare not for profit, you're probably receiving some Medicaid expansion funds from the covered person. So the covered person shows up to you, and you have insurance through Medicaid expansion, and they get paid at whatever the reimbursement rate is.
And we're very high in that, actually, with those not-for-profits that can bill for this, that have those patients that are on this. So I can see why they're scared and nervous.
Well, hospitals especially.
Oh, they just check off box. They don't even.
The critical care, without naming names, but you know who they are in Great Falls, the critical care hospitals who will say they can't pick and choose who their clients are. They have to accept everybody.
Okay.
But they also get an income tax break and a property tax break.
Okay.
And then they get this money.
This
So
this.
it's like, I know, I get it. Inflation is hard for everyone, but it's hard for everyone, not just the hospitals.
So,
And
this is the biggest one you think so far for uphill battle?
this is going to be one of the biggest fights of the legislature. The hard thing is the margins are small. So, it'll probably pass full on as has been.
Good.
And we'll just continue. Well, no, not this bill. No, the Medicaid expansion will probably pass as is, with no work requirements, no premium payments.
I was almost
probably signed by the governor. Our governor never got behind vetoing any sort of legislation like this. I think he's all for it.
That was my next question. Do you think this would get vetoed? I mean, do you think that theirs would get vetoed?
If my bill gets far enough, as far as like accountability and responsibility, I'm sure. No, I think we want status quo. I think that's what the people want.
That's why we have death caucus. All right.
We'll get into that more later.
Okay. Tax on digital advertising.
Yeah, so
what is this?
Actually, it's kind of funny. I tried this in 2021 during the COVID session is what I'll call it, where we saved the world from the COVID idiots and the health departments, right?
COVID idiots.
Yeah. So HB 363 is what this bill was in 2021 when I was in the House. So it was a House bill. So this is, I think it's a 10 or 20% tax on digital advertising. So you see, you're streaming, and Spectrum's going to be all over this. They're going to hate it. They're going to come after you. But the difference is between 2021 and now is there was some sort of federal congressional act that supposedly limited the amount states could tax things that happened over the internet. And this was a Maryland bill. So Maryland actually had this bill. So liberal, tax more, whatever. But actually what my vision was for this was tax Facebook, tax Google advertising, tax those companies. And sure, they might pass it through and we might pay a little bit more if we digitally advertise things. But really is aimed at those companies. And since 2021, it's been ruled constitutional and good to go. So we're gonna run the scan on some solid footing.
All right.
So we're gonna tax some people more. Big businesses, right? That's what the Democrats like to do
all the time.
Or we're gonna tax Facebook because they censor us. So they're gonna probably watch this. This will probably end up in.
I'm not about taxes, but tax the shit out of them.
This will probably end up in some court hearing where they're like, obviously he was targeting us, but no, it's objectively across the board. So if you're a judge listening to this or a jury, in the future, just know that objectively applies to everybody. It's not targeting one or the other. It just so happens to kind of target some.
We talked how objective you are. All right, next one. What do we got here?
Okay, change audio. Oh, this is a great one. This is a great one for you libertarians.
Good.
Change audio recording laws I tried this once. It failed. To allow for a one-party recording of government officials.
Right.
Meaning, if I was secretly recording you as a private individual, I'm in trouble if I don't tell you.
Right.
Now, government usually has to get a warrant to record audio. So video, they can record any of us can record video all day long in a public space.
Okay.
Right.
And people don't know this. So,
right. But audio, if you don't have, if it's a commercial facility and people walk in and you have cameras and they record audio, you should have that posted because we're a two-party state, meaning I have to have your consent to record you.
Yep.
Now, I think, and this is what this bill is, we should be able to record government officials like CPS or police without telling them.
Yes.
If they're doing their job in their official duties.
Right.
So if they're on the clock, they're doing their job, it's obviously they're a government official.
Yeah.
I should be able to have a recorder on me recording you without telling you.
The same way that they have a recorder recording me. If they have a body cam or anything else of that nature.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's just
now if they have a body cam, you're going to know they have a body cam.
Sure.
And I guess there's a presumption that they're recording you. But
presumption.
But as a private individual, I think we should be able to protect ourselves against government authority with private recording if we want to. And really, this comes from a CPS issue, like Child Protective Services issue. Like, I think if they are doing their job poorly or taking advantage of their position, you should be able to present that evidence in court.
Yeah.
And this law would allow you to do that.
Which would be perfect.
Yep. Right now, if you record a government official and you show up in court with that audio recording, court's probably going to say, well, actually, you're in trouble because we're a two-party state and you didn't ask for consent.
Right.
So you're going to be charged with
then you're in
violation.
Trouble. Right. Yep. Right. We do have laws though that do say in public proceedings, you can record, you can't do audio.
Yeah. So I think if you got a traffic stop and you had a car video audio system and the cop knew, obviously, there's a presumption that you have a recording device aimed at them, you can record them without necessarily asking permission. I'm not a lawyer, but that's probably right. But like secretly record official government people. Yeah.
Right. All right. No, very good stuff. I think this one's going to go. Do you think we have any pushback on this, you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. From the law enforcement community.
Oh, well, of course.
And Child Protective Services.
Well, yeah.
From the government. We will have pushback from the government.
Yeah. What do you think about party lines?
I don't know. Some Democrats might get on board with this. Unless
you would think that they would, because, I mean,
it's so funny with them.
Protect everybody.
Right. It's so funny with them, though, because, they'll say, well, we protect the little person. Then you show up and you're like, oh, you know what? We really need to respect police and law enforcement and local government.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, choose one.
Yeah.
Because you're choosing one.
Hand them a boot. Tell them to lick that.
You want to stick up for the individual. Here's your chance.
Yeah.
Do it.
Bootlickers. I said that. Kevin Leatherbarrow said that. Bootlickers.
I didn't say it.
I did.
I got to get the votes.
Yeah. You're all a bunch of bootlickers. Well, the interesting case of this is that we just had one here in Great Falls. It was about a year or so ago, where that gentleman had recorded the police officers doing their job. Supreme Court has ruled we see auditors all over YouTube, and they're going around doing all of this kind of stupid stuff. I don't agree with whatever they're doing in a lot of terms when they're auditing police and things of that nature. But we just
don't get in the way. You can record them out in public for sure.
And the Supreme Court
don't impede their duties.
And do not impede it. Right, exactly. It was just dropped. So that gentleman that was arrested, and he was not impeding their duties or anything. Actually, he was threatened more than they were. Even if he was a loudmouth, whatever guy anyway. I think it was good that the district attorney and everybody else said, we better drop this case. But
not worth their time. Not worth their time. But yeah, if it takes that long, it's like, how much did we spend in taxpayer dollars to drop that case?
Exactly.
Take up and drop that case.
They should have just dropped it. Right. Sorry. They should have looked at the constitutional case law on that one. All right. What do we got here?
So this is a rerun too. So this bill, as I mentioned in the very beginning, is, or maybe that was during the test run. Bills are done in incrementalism.
Okay.
So if you don't pass it the first time, try again.
Yes.
This was 2021's House Bill 515. And I think it was run by Jennifer Carlson in 2021. And she lost in a primary, but she also passed vaccine rights bill, House Bill, I think it was 702 in 2021 as well. So good job on that. That was held up by federal court, thank God, because our Supreme Court sure wasn't going to do it.
And didn't we have something about this with phones too? Didn't something pass? Weren't you had something to do with
this might be different. So this one provide definition of imminent harm or exigency within this title of statute, which
has to be. Yep.
So it goes back to CPS again.
Yes.
So what happens is there's 3 ways that a government official can cross the threshold into your home.
Right.
1 is you give them permission. Say, sure, come on in. 2 is a warrant. Right. 3 is this often used loophole, which is, oh my goodness, there's imminent harm, which they call exigency.
Right.
Imminent harm means something is imminently going to harm someone in that household, and the government, we have to protect them from this.
This is not animals either, guys. This is people. They're not animals. Okay, that is not in the law. All right, it is that you have to be a person or some imminent danger, no question.
Imminent harm of something. Yeah, right.
Of something. Yep.
So this got pushed back by, of course, CPS. But again, 3 ways that under the 4th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and our state constitution,
and the state constitution and our laws,
there's 3 ways government can impede on your freedom and your right to your private property, which is a warrant, your permission, or exigency, meaning maybe I'm aiming a gun at you in your home, and a police officer just happens to know that he can come in and defend you and save you because that's an emergent situation.
Kids are being beaten.
Imminent harm.
Right. You can visually see the kids are being beaten in the back.
But imminent harm has been used as a loophole to circumvent those constitutional rights that we have of not going through a court and not taking the time to get a warrant and not asking permission, frankly.
Right.
Or maybe you're denied permission, but you don't like that answer.
They don't like that answer.
So imminent harm is the great loophole.
Yeah.
And this provides definition, and definition means we're going to provide greater black and white lines for government
to follow
when it comes to an emergent. What is an emergency situation?
Right.
To break into your home.
And I think you have a lot of Supreme Court backing on this one. I think there's a lot written.
You should. You never know with our Supreme Court, but ultimately, the thing is with laws like this, with constitutional issues, what I found is that the higher up you get in the court system, the more likely that court is going to be abstractly concerned with our constitutional rights. So the higher up you get, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, great example, or Supreme Court, the higher you get, the more concerned with our actual constitutional rights courts seem to care about. District courts, oftentimes there's just a rubber stamp for CPS, just like, sure, do whatever the hell you want. CPS, take the kids, take their freedom. It's a civil case, whatever. It's not criminal. They don't really have that many rights, really, do they? So just rubber stamp it. Go ahead. You're probably right.
You said everything that I was thinking. Right. Great thing to be watching. This is one that I had put it on my list with our organizations that I'm with, and this one I'm going to be keeping an eye on. There's another one up top too. I didn't even mention that, but I'm really interested in that one. This leads right into
oh my goodness, another CPS.
Another CPS. What I love
it's as if there's problems in the system.
There is a huge problem, and I'm glad somebody is actually taking it on because these aren't the easy ones. Okay.
Oh no, I don't do easy bills.
No,
these
are hard.
That's no fun. That's not a challenge.
Yeah, and this should be a no-brainer for everybody. You want to tell us about this one?
Sure. Okay, so what it says is, if no one else will have the bill, I'd like to have a similar to the one that got vetoed in 2023. I think another Jennifer Carlson bill that required a warrant before the removal of a child in a CPS situation in most cases. So first of all, we're defining imminent harm and exigency. Second of all, we're saying vetoed means the governor vetoed this bill in 2023.
Which blew me away.
And really, what the stupid thing is this is constitutionally what our rights are already.
Right.
It's just passing a bill kind of puts another layer of we mean it to this.
Right.
And so this says, and of course it's opposed by law enforcement and it's opposed by Child Protective Services. All it means is you have to go get a judge to say, sure, yep, you have enough cause.
And show what
evidence.
You're going to actually.
You have enough evidence to remove a child, to take a child out of their home and put them in government care. Which, by the way, how much room do we have for more kids in government care?
We don't have any.
Right. So it's like, okay, let's put a little bit more of a vetting process and a filter into this process, and uphold constitutional rights.
And that is no way of minimizing what's really going on. So, I mean, when there's a real situation,
when there's a real situation,
you have
CPS doesn't remove the kid.
Right. Isn't that weird?
It's like they're busybodies that get involved in the cases that they don't need to be involved in, and they miss the cases that they should be involved in, which is the problem with any giant system. But at the same time, that's kind of the perception that's happening, and maybe more reality than perception.
And lives have been lost because of
liberty, life and liberty.
Life and liberty have been lost.
I mean, I think having your own child in your own home is part of liberty.
Yeah, you don't get to come in.
Maybe the pursuit of happiness. I don't know. That's somewhere written by someone.
Well, some would argue with our children. We question the younger one. We question
why should we even have warrants if we're just going to ignore this because there's some sort of deemed emergency by the government.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like broader topic, Convention of States. Just dropped a bomb there.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we need to do term limits and balanced budget amendments. You know what happens with the balanced budget amendment, right? You balance the budget. Sure, not really, unless there's an emergency. So if there's an emergency, you do whatever the hell you want. You print more money. Guess what? The government's always going to have an emergency if that's the loophole.
Well, what's a shame is I was threatened for arrestment by CPS caseworkers who said I could be arrested. They're going to arrest me for obstruction, and I was like, "Go get it."
That just means you're not doing what they want.
Exactly.
And they didn't ask a judge to do what they were doing first, did they?
I'm like, "Go ahead."
Did they show up with a warrant?
Nope.
Yeah, right.
They showed up with a stupid little a pamphlet that I already.
This is an emergency.
Exactly. We need to interview this da 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 da. And I'm like,
but it's still a civil case. It's not a criminal case.
Right.
They rarely ever charge people, and some people deserve to be charged criminally.
So how do I? So you say, well, okay, wait a minute. I need to protect this individual who cannot answer questions correctly. Who is
so many people don't know their rights,
and they don't know what they're
right.
And
this is a high level conversation about constitutional rights. What's that when someone shows up at your door,
right?
And it says, "Well, we have a right to be inside your house."
No,
like the pressure campaign. It's like you don't know your rights.
Yeah,
most people don't in this situation, and that's really what the Constitution is about. Is like we need people to know that they have rights. That the government can't cross the threshold of your home without permission, a warrant, or really truly imminent harm happening to someone in their household.
Right. And that's exactly what I said. Do you guys have information that this child here is being harmed or no, nothing like that?
We'd
Well,
just like to
we
peek
just like
around.
to, we just like to just
Look at your fridge.
yeah, forget about it. Okay.
Make sure you don't have drugs on the counter.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Can't believe you had the guts to even threaten me with that.
But if you say no, like, then they'll call the police to come back them up, right? So
yeah, that's what they said they would do.
The strong arm man, right?
Yeah, the strong arm part. Which I probably know him anyways. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, call him. Call him.
We'll have a nice conversation out our door, outside on the porch.
The Chief's number. Here, why don't you go call and I'll see you back here in a little while. Yeah. Outside my door.
We'll call our senator.
We'll have him right here, right now. Yeah. So what drives you for all of these CPS? What passion is behind
I think
all of this?
it's the core of how messed up constitutional rights can get when people don't know what their rights are. And so, part of that goes maybe back to our educational system, which I think you love to talk about, right?
I do.
Is like, you should know what our Constitution says. You should know what it means. You should know what it means when the rubber meets the road, which is what this is. And so I think that's just the raw place where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are threatened.
Yeah.
By a government official, a bureaucrat who's just getting paid $25 an hour and maybe they're fresh out of college, maybe they're jaded and they've been there 20 years. Like, but where the rubber meets the road, you have rights, and maybe that government official forgot that it's not just a job. They have to respect
they have an
the
oath
Constitution
that they signed, and it's
as much as anyone. I think you just get in your job and you forget that that's the case. But like,
that's a shame.
Remember, you show up in court, and the higher the court goes, the most a lot of big California cases ended up with big settlements and lawsuits where $20 million has to be paid out because the government official did the wrong thing under the Constitution. And that really means something, because lost time with your child, you can't get that back.
Especially at the younger ages of like that, where you have the imprint on the parents, where you're imprinting on your child. They know you, they're learned, and you lose that imprint. You have harmed that child just in one instance all the way through. As far as
and so it's meaningful, it's important, and I think that's where rights need to be upheld the most, is where people can't or don't know what they are. So I guess these bills are more about putting the impetus on government to remember what their role is, which is to protect truly vulnerable children.
Right.
That's what the system is meant to be.
Right.
It's not what it's become.
It was a shame when I had to go through my case with these guys, and it wasn't my personal case. It was where I was adopting a child. I had to go back and learn their protocols and their backdoor ways on my own, and fight them from inside out. Actually calling up to the hill, up in Helena, the headquarters, and working my way downwards. And I bet you they could have probably had my child for 2 years locked up. I got it done in 9 because I knew their protocols. I went back and I had to read all of their procedures and reread the laws on where my boundaries were as a grandfather to my adoptee that I was adopting. So, boy, I hope some of these things right here, they really do hit a lot of people, I think, in so many other ways. And I know a lot of parents that I work with who are foster parents, and they are frustrated. They're frustrated with even their rights and how they're violated, and they watch the children that they're bringing over being violated. Who wants to be a foster home parent or whichever, if they've got to fight this system that doesn't seem right to them?
Well, and you add more than just state law to it. There's federal laws like ICWA, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act. I can't remember if Montana passed. We tried to pass their own. I think it actually did pass. Maybe it got stuck in the House. I forget. But you add federal laws and federal courts and tribal courts to the mix, and it's just a giant mess of bureaucratic process, and people are lost in the middle of it.
They sure are.
And especially if you don't know how to fight it. If you do know how to fight it, even if you do know how to fight it, it's expensive because you have to get a lawyer and not just a public defender to help you out.
Yeah.
So you have to get a competent person to help you fight in the legal system. And it's expensive no matter which route you take to come up with the right outcome.
All right. I know how much you love building codes.
So much. Building codes are really the core of states' rights, I think. That's what I've decided. Building code
this ought to be good.
Is not, other than things like ADA, the accessible
cares.
Yeah, right. So ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yes.
That's federal.
Yep.
But like besides that, we have so much latitude as a state to regulate building code, and building code has so much input into how much things cost, whether it's residential or commercial.
And I don't think a lot of people think about that, Jeremy.
Well, you have to get in the weeds to think about it and to know and realize where the connections are. But states have, I mean, gosh, this is one area where we just like, we got both hands. Like oftentimes we're one hand tied behind the back of the legislature, by the court, or by the federal government, or both. And so oftentimes we're fighting with one or both hands behind our back. Building code is right within our domain. That's fully within the state's rights. And so what happens with building code is like there's these national, international committees. There's fire code, regular building code, and we adopt these as a state, and we don't have to adopt them, or we can adopt part of them, or we can exclude part of it. So, people come up with these ideas about how to make buildings more safe or fire resistant, or so on and so forth to a degree. But I think we've gone and swung the pendulum too far on the side of like, everything has to be so safe, but that makes it so expensive. And so we're really restricted. It makes me think of, Atlas Shrugged, like the thought leaders, the innovators, the entrepreneurs are leaving the scene. They're like, screw it, I can't do it. There's some building official with a pension that's close to retirement that just is saying no at every corner.
Right up
and even the new guy with the People's Plan, and I hope he sees this, because I love picking on him for this. It's going to be so great with the People's Plan. Yeah, I still can't be an entrepreneur in the city because I just get a no around every corner. So it's like, you got to get out of my damn way so I can make money and pay your taxes.
Right. And I think
building code is the raw middle of all of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, do they want businesses and things to actually grow?
I mean, I think they say they do, but I think they don't see what the other side of the balance of the coin is, which is like, we got to require this and this and this and this and this. It's like, I can't afford that. The big guys can. Exactly. So the big guys can get and stay in the game. It's really if
somebody wants to start grassroots and start from
it's a barrier to entry
and say, boy, you know what? I'll take that building that is like dilapidated, it's going down, and I'll take. Can I have that, please? And then they slap you with $3 million worth of code.
Right. And I think a lot of things. I think the balance has gone too far in terms of like, it's got to be safe. And so I ran a bill like this. This had to do with fire suppression, so fire sprinklers in commercial areas. And the really goofy thing that happened is I showed up at committee, and I have all these. They were there for something else, but I have all these fire officials behind me in this committee hearing in a small room in the Senate local government committee. Like, oh, but this thing happened in California where like these ravers, these people on drugs were in a warehouse, and it lit up on fire and they died. It's like, no shit. No shit. Yeah. That was illegal in like 12 different ways. Like, I just want to be able to have like an event center with some people. Sure, I'll put a fire alarm system in maybe.
Listen, we'll put a fire extinguisher in every seat if you want.
And if something happens, people are going to get out because they're going to be awake and they're not going to be on drugs. And it's not going to be a dilapidated warehouse where there's no like official presence in house, right?
So what I'm hearing is they have literally, they don't trust anybody but themselves.
Well, I would say it this way, bureaucrats, they have a job to do. They want to keep people safe.
Yeah.
That's their focus. And God bless them for it. I just don't think they've ever been an entrepreneur where they balance out the benefits to the risks and how much things cost. And they don't care how much things cost because the rule is the rule. It's like, okay, I'm trying to change the rule.
Yeah. And
people will still be safe.
Yeah.
And I'm not hosting a rave where people are on drugs. And also I'm not on drugs. So like my properties will be safe. I have insurance to pay, right? So like I still want to be able to afford insurance. And I have an investment in these properties. So I have a vested interest in making sure nothing goes wrong as well. Yeah. And that's the market at work. And that's contracts at work, private contracts.
I want to see insurances go down knowing that I carry a firearm on my at work on my own business every day. Can we do that? Can we write they want to put something in your car.
Talk to the commissioners of securities and insurance for that one.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, okay. Give me the number when we're done here. I'll go talk to him. Give me the number.
It's James Brown. It used to be Troy Downing. He's your congressman now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, maybe I'll have him on, and we'll have a little sit down.
Have him stop by. Yeah,
exactly. Listen, if we train everybody to have firearms and their security systems are great, then
maybe that new senator guy can do something at the federal level.
Who's that guy?
Oh, the new guy, the guy who was part of like the $100 million Senate campaign.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't need any more name recognition.
No, he doesn't. No. If you don't know who we're talking about, then
his pronouns are she and he, though. So just know that.
He said that.
Hey,
But
he
they
did
are.
that.
I did
that.
He did.
That was part of his
that.
pitch,
He
not
did
mine.
say that. Yep. Are we going any further with this one here? What about this one? Most likely. This will.
Oh, yeah, that one.
What is this one?
Yeah, I did this one before. I changed it just a tad, just to maybe make it a little bit more palatable for like the Highway Patrol with their input.
Yeah.
So SB 204 in 2023, so Senate Bill 204 was a DUI law.
Okay. You have great bills, by the way.
I wish everybody thought so. I wish a majority of the legislature and the governor thought so. That would be pretty cool.
No shit. You have some great bills. Governor and anybody, we're going to send it.
They're great. They're perfect.
You're going to send this to your office.
Yeah, right. Watch this. Right?
Yeah.
Send this to his email.
I will.
So the change will be in line 17I of this, I'll explain what it is. We'll strike including and add except to make it so that the occupant may not occupy the driver's seat when they're intoxicated.
Of course.
Only the other seats within the vehicle. So what this means is you can sit in your car in a passenger seat or in the back seat. So like you're in the passenger seat, you turn the car on. Hopefully you're not in stick shift like I own. Right. Yeah, it's winter.
Let's say you're in winter or it's hot.
If you're in a vehicle where you don't have to push in the clutch, you can turn on the vehicle from the passenger seat, turn on the heat, and sleep it off.
Yeah, perfect.
That's what this is. Now, the problem is there's something called, I'm going to forget it without the rest of the bill. Well, anyway, right now, I don't know if you know this, but DUI, what's that stand for? Driving under the influence.
Under the influence, yes.
But did you know you can get a DUI when you're not even moving?
Yep.
If you have control.
If you're sitting,
I'm going to come up with the words. I forget what they are.
Sitting in a driver's seat.
Here's my problem with this. The legislature never passed a DUI law the way it's been enforced. We never passed that law.
No.
It's been set by court precedent.
Right.
It's physical control.
The court's being the legislator.
So the physical control is that if you have the ability to physically control your vehicle while intoxicated, meaning you have like the keys somewhere where you can find them, you can be charged with DUI.
Yeah.
So you're not moving. You're not, under the libertarian theory, you're not endangering anybody else.
Nobody.
You're not even endangering yourself. You're not moving.
Well, it should be everybody's theory.
Right. And so you can keep yourself warm. You can not move from the bar parking lot.
Right.
But also the ways open to the public, the ways of the road open to the public is another legal term that was not created by the legislature, by the way.
Do you know what that means? I don't
It means like if you're sitting in a bar parking lot, but that's like public parking lot.
Oh.
So, or you're in the Walmart parking lot. That's a way open to the public. So if you're in a way open to the public and you're intoxicated, private property, you still get a DUI.
That's bullshit.
That's what this bill aims to fix.
That's bullshit.
The legislature never passed that law with that term or the physical control term. That was created, and I argued that to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and there was a couple of sticklers, one in particular, and he's going to be chair of the Judiciary Committee, love him to death. He's helping me on some bills, but he just can't get past that the legislature never passed this bill and gave this authority to enforce this DUI law as it has been enforced in Montana. So I'm like, let's put our own stamp on it as the legislature to say we provide legitimacy to either how it's been enforced or we're going to change it back to what our original intent was.
Do you know how much revenue DUIs bring in besides ruining lives?
Absolutely do not. No.
Probably a lot, though.
Probably a lot. I mean, so again, it's balancing safety with reasonability and helping individuals choose the best course. And so right now what happens is you're going to get a DUI sitting in your cold vehicle if nobody can pick you up and Uber's not available.
Yeah, you gotta wait.
And you're in a rural area.
Doors or something. Yeah.
Or you're in a rural area and you live 10 miles, 20 miles from home. You can't sit in the bar parking lot with your vehicle on because your keys are there. You have physical control of the vehicle. Right. Now, maybe theoretically, maybe you have a automatic car start. Mine lasts for 20 minutes.
Yeah, mine too.
On not my vehicle, but my wife's vehicle.
Right. Yep, mine too. 20 minutes.
You could turn that on and then toss the keys in the snowbank, and you're probably legally safe.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
But because once you hit the brake, it turns off.
Right.
So, maybe under that case, but you have 20 minutes of heat, but you're going to be there all night and it's minus 20.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? You're going to drive home where it's warm and you're going to be on the road for the time it takes to go 10 or 20 miles to get home.
Yeah. Because you'd rather take the risk instead of
you're going to get
the
the
right
deal.
thing.
You can't stay in the bar.
Right.
You're not close to anybody else.
Nope.
Nobody can pick you up and Uber's not available.
It's forcing you underground.
So you can freeze to death or you can drive home.
Or
you're going to drive home.
Get the hell in the car and I'm just going to see if I can get home.
So under this law, it allows you to turn on your car, not be in the driver's seat. That was one Highway Patrol's good suggestion. Like they weren't saying no. They were just like, sometimes I go up to someone's vehicle and I knock on the window and it startles them and they put it in drive and they take off and they're intoxicated still. Okay, makes sense. Put them in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
Put them in the back seat. Start the vehicle. Get out.
Yeah.
And sleep it off in the warmth.
Yeah.
Harms nobody. Probably reduces the number of actual fatalities and crashes.
What about campers?
Ooh, well, there's always an outlier to everything, right? So you're camping, and
your heater goes, and you only have the truck heater that you.
Oh, are you talking about like drivable RVs?
Yeah.
Interesting. Probably still at risk of getting a DUI if you have physical control of the vehicle. And here's the other thing though, like maybe you have someone else with you. Sure. If you're not by yourself, you probably have a little bit more of an out there.
Sure.
Like you're not behind the vehicle's wheel, and you have someone else with you that can take control of it and get you where you need to go. So I don't know. That's probably more of an outlier, and that's why we have judges
to figure that one out
and juries.
Yeah. I could see the guy just going, he goes to the fridge, gets himself a beer, been drinking out the fire, whatever else comes down, and he gets into the vehicle. He goes, "Oh, my heater's not working." He turns it on. He's just sitting there for a second, and he hears the knock on the freaking window. It's like, shit, I just got here. My heater went out. Right? Would he buy it? Right? Under what we have now, he's ripe for DUI.
I would hope the sheriff's deputy in that situation is pretty cool about it and kind of understands. So that's probably the case. They're probably cool about it, and that's it.
Totally cool.
But that's an outlier. Who knows? You could get the book thrown at you.
Yeah, it all depends on whatever you do. All right, what do we got here?
So this was my bill that allowed duplexes, which was originally a fourplex bill, on a single family residentially zoned lot. So 2023, SB 323.
Oh, interesting.
Started out as a fourplex bill.
Okay.
Got chopped down to a duplex bill by the House Local Government Committee, which included 3 representatives. 2 are still there. No, one who's still there, from Great Falls, who butchered my bill. But again, one of the 3 is still there.
We don't get to say who.
Okay, so we had Scott Kearns.
Okay, Scott.
We had Steve Galloway and Steve Gist. Steve Gist is still there.
Okay.
On the local government committee. So I don't hold a grudge, but just saying you should allow freedom. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. We totally agree.
So what this means is, like most lots in most cities, and especially like where we're at here, are what are called single residential zoned lots. So they allow for one household with one family. A duplex is, two families units, on one lot. Lots in Great Falls are 50 by 150, 50 feet by 150 feet. So 7,500 square feet. My original bill would have allowed a 4-unit complex on a single family resident on 7,500 square feet.
Okay.
It got chopped down to a duplex. That's the one that ended up the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, well, the legislature has the authority to say that. They can do that.
Okay.
It got challenged by a Bozeman attorney, a real asshole, really. He's part of another Senate letter that we sent off. But he lives in the guy that was the attorney that challenged it, along with other Bozeman people, mostly, didn't want, God forbid, a 2 or 4 unit next to their single family residentially zoned, lot, which, by the way, is next to a fraternity in Bozeman. So it's like, come on, really? Right. You guys are just being dicks.
That's a dick move, right?
And he lost. So good for him. Move. Good for him.
Because you did
spent a lot of time, money. Yep. And he lost. So because guess what? The legislature can regulate building code and zoning and local government because we allow them to exist.
Right.
Anyway. Yeah. So that's a fourplex on a single family. I'm just kind of pushing the envelope a little bit with that one because it's like, that's the way it should have been. You should be able to do with your private property what you want. That's all there is to it.
All right, you love controversy bills.
I love freedom.
I know, me too.
I mean, freedom is controversial. Did you know that?
I don't see any age in the Constitution. Do you?
That's why I get called the singular member of the Death Caucus because, I like freedom, and freedom is scary.
It's very scary. And I don't see an age in the Constitution. Do you?
Okay, so what you're talking about is SB 366, which did not pass in 2023.
Okay.
Not even to the Business and Labor Committee. Of which I'm going to be on this session. Right. The vice chair of the Business and Labor Committee on the Senate side.
All right.
Yeah. So this is revising drinking age. And the bullshit that happened with this last time was a fiscal note that said that, oh my goodness, we're going to lose federal highway funds if we pass this bill that allows people less than 21 to drink with their parents or legal guardians.
Really?
Yep. But what I did was I called Wisconsin up, or I got them on the email, and I said, so Wisconsin doesn't have a drinking age for people drinking with their parents.
I didn't know that.
Or a legal guardian. And here's why.
Woohoo!
Do you know the federal government passed a law that says you have to be 21 to drink? Now, the federal government cannot commandeer the states into complying with that, but they can if you want their money. And so we accepted federal highway funds. So we expected their laws. With shekels come shackles.
Right. And take that as a serious lesson to everybody about wanting to take federal money anytime, anywhere.
Same with open container laws,
Right.
same with seatbelt law. Like, if you want the federal government's money, you got to play by their rules.
Gotcha.
We don't have to play by the rules if we don't want their money. And I don't want their money.
I don't want their money either.
But that fiscal note scared a lot of people, saying, no, we're going to lose millions and millions of highway dollars. I called Wisconsin up and said, you guys don't have a drinking age, right? If, as the federal law was passed, if you look at the federal law that was passed, it said, you have to be 21 unless you can drink with your legal guardian or your parents. Actually, they didn't put a drinking age to that. Wisconsin does not have a drinking age if you're with your parents, as long as you don't get your kid intoxicated in a bar.
That's awesome.
And so this time I'm going to go in and say, if you put that fiscal note on here, that's baloney, because I called and emailed the transportation department of the state of Wisconsin. And they said, nope, we don't lose any federal funds.
And that held muster for them first of this.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, it was just an excuse to vote no as a committee members.
Okay.
And remember, you got to get a majority through the whole process each vote.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, but I'm going to remove one boogeyman from the process and see how it goes this time.
Yeah.
And plus, I'm going to be on that committee.
And how many times has this? I mean, they call me a Gen Xer. We used to just walk to the keg and grab a beer. There was none of this, this real concern, And if somebody gets called for a noise complaint and the cops come walking through your back gate, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" and they see a minor and it happens to be your kid with a beer.
Right.
You're
as long as you're there, you have to be in control as the guardian or the parent.
Trouble.
Right.
I mean, they could get you for.
Well, yeah.
They're called CPS right off the bat.
There's a social host law ordinance in the city of Great Falls and some other cities. So social host, meaning you're a parent, you're hosting a teenage drinking party,
right?
And that's illegal by ordinance. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I get it. You don't want to encourage irresponsible behavior, and that's oftentimes what happens is people read between the lines and says, you're encouraging or you want this irresponsible behavior to happen. No,
that's not
I want a legal guardian or a parent who's responsible to be in charge of raising their child the way they see fit, including with alcohol. Yeah. Why do you think we've had this problem? It's because we can't even deal with alcohol until you're 21, unless you do it illegally.
Which is, and people getting fake IDs, which now becomes fraud.
So in Canada, of all places, their drinking age is still 18. Europe is still, 18, I think, if that.
Yep. I used to travel over because, I lived in towards Buffalo, New York, and we used to just hop over to go across so we could drink at 18. Mm-hmm. And then it sucked for me because New York used to be 18, and then as soon as I turned 18, they bumped it to 19. As soon as I got 19, they bumped it to 21. So we were just going over across the border.
Middle finger to Kevin
all the way through that, man. It's like, fuck you. I'm like, geez. All right, cool. Okay. All right, great one. I
like to have fun in the 4 months that I'm in session every 2 years.
This is definitely getting you
boring. Fun. I don't want to be there.
What's it? And again, people aren't going to know about the Chevron doctrine, which is a shame, especially in light of the Chevron. What's this one here?
So similar, again, another rerun. 2023's Senate Bill 466, which said that we should be able to mine and burn and distribute coal produced energy in our state, intrastate.
Right.
So interstate is something that happened, when we have interstate commerce, our commerce clause, which has been so broadly construed and
grossly.
I've tried to at least avoid anything that has to do with interstate commerce with this, saying we have our own coal reserves in Montana. We have an ocean of coal. We will never run out of coal in Montana. Right. Even if we provided the entire nation with coal resources, we would not run out. We have a coal plant. We have coal plants. We have a distribution system. We have the three things that could mean that Montana would have its own sovereignty over its own energy production cheaply. Like, we have all those things in one place. And so what happened to the Chevron doctrine, I think it was it this summer or the last summer? Anyway, long standing doctrine that said that courts largely had to defer to, I think, federal administrative interpretations of law.
The legislative.
Right. Well, not the legislative necessarily, the bureaucratic, the executive branch rulemaking bodies of the federal government.
Okay.
And I think that's what it said, is the courts had to defer to that as much as possible.
But what's going to be hard with this, though, while I'm thinking about it, is if I'm not, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there has to be a victim here. So the victim would be the state?
Yeah, and actually, now that you mention that, we had the Hill decision in the state by, the environmentalist kids, including the, Bussey's kid who lost the, seat for governor as a Democrat. That's going to be a sticky wicket to deal with. But in our Constitution, it says that we have a right to a clean and healthful environment or something like that, which, take that as you will.
Yeah, exactly.
I would like cheap energy is what I'd like.
Very cheap.
And so we're going to have a problem on our hands with that ruling by our liberal Supreme Court, and that really was decided completely wrongly. But federally, I think things are going in the right direction with the Chevron doctrine being struck down by our Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
I think that takes us back to, again, I'll say the term original intent, where we look at the intent of legislative lawmaking that lawmakers who are elected actually passed, and not the rulemaking bodies of the bureaucratic swamp. And so taking the Chevron doctrine and putting a strike through it will return us back to the originality of having judges think for themselves as judges, as part of the judicial system, to interpret what Congress meant by the will of the things that they actually meant to pass.
Well, and I think our Supreme Court here, I think the Ninth Circuit here, just shot themselves in the foot with this because, or the Supreme Court here with the Supreme Court, because they showed a victim for not having a quality of air or whichever else. Like I said, when we apply for this and say we need to strike down these rules and sue them, we need a victim. Would the victim be the state of Montana or the people of Montana?
They generally aim for like an individual injury type.
Probably an individual.
And so in this case, the kids who are going to be harmed by some sort of poor environment. I'm sorry, the state of Montana is not producing enough carbon to change the world's environment.
No. But for it to work in our favor, we would just have to show a victim.
It doesn't work when your activist Supreme Court is always going to swing left.
Right.
And so that's what I talk about, going back to, we have one or both hands tied behind our back, either by the federal government at times or, the judicial system. So as a legislature, I often ask, why do we exist? Why do we even bother getting elected if the Supreme Court's going to make all the decisions, or the federal government has all the power?
That seems to be more and more of a real problem.
When we give away more of our power all the time, we say, sure, we'll take your money, and then we'll shut up about what we actually wanted.
Right. Yeah. Scary time.
Why am I even here? That's the question half the time. Why am I even here? What am I doing?
We could skip one if you want. Do you want to skip this one? Or
this one's easy.
Okay.
Reverse repeal HB 62 from 2023. So this is generally revised bail bonds and insurance law. So what happened with this was Troy Downing was trying to produce his profile to run for Congress, and it was successful. But he wanted to regulate bail bondsmen, and he did that because he was commissioner of insurance, securities and insurance. And so he wanted to create more rules about regulating the bail bonds industry, essentially. And I think it was just, making himself look better for his run for Congress. So I don't think he's actually going to care about this being repealed now that he's actually won his prize. And I criticized him at the time. And again, I hope all these people that I'm talking about hear this. I'd love to hear from them.
You just send me emails and I'll just send them all out, bud.
But even if I was even slightly critical of him at times, he would be right up in my Facebook Messenger, being like, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you talking about?" Like, dude, you're doing the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. So that's why I'm here. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have anything to lose here other than like, But anyways, this is repealing that regulation of the bail bonds industry, letting them do their own thing, regulate themselves. There's been cases where bail bondsmen of sorts there's always bad apples in any industry, and he used those cases to say, well, this happened in Butte, or
and the one right here in Great Falls,
and in Great Falls,
and the
so
one in Great Falls,
bad things happen, but
they do.
But guess what? Those people are still charged. There's still laws against what those people did.
Yeah, I think and this was when was the last session you were there? Because I think I was listening to this. I was in a session when they were arguing, and the regulations for bail bondsmen too, to become a bail bonds agent.
Right. Yeah, that was part of it.
And that was part of it.
Yeah. This is repealing all that. So I'm all about deregulation. Yeah. Let the industry regulate. Industry should be its own policeman, usually. And I know there's criticisms of that, but your reputation should also be your own.
Absolutely.
Private contracts, your own reputation.
Yep.
And there's still laws against some of the things that went wrong in all the cases cited to pass this regulation bill.
Yes.
So
there was consequences to it, and state law covered that.
Yeah.
And so did federals. I mean, some federal laws were probably broken too.
And again, it was a bill run for the wrong reasons in the first place. So we added regulations so you could be safer.
It's always safer.
So we could get
safer for who?
So we could get elected to Congress, and that way we could also support our Speaker Johnson.
Come on. All right,
Downing's all in about Johnson for Speaker too. So
this is really going to piss people off.
Oh, what did I do now? Yeah. Oh, repeal
the security guard and firm licensing requirements.
I got a phone call on the other night, like 2 or 3 nights ago, and I got to call this guy back. But he was part of the highway patrol, and I think I've met him, and I have to call him back. I still owe him a phone call. Yeah, repeal security guard and firm licensing requirements. Yes. So this is deregulating the security guard. Do you know you have to have a license to watch security cameras for people?
Are you serious?
Yeah. So if you want to start a security firm and say, you know what, if you set up security cameras in your home or your business and you want me to monitor them, I have to have a license.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, or if I want to go drive around town and watch people's properties and do drive-by checkups,
just to do checkup on them,
I have to get a security guard license.
Oh.
So this guy, his name's Tom. I'll call him back. He is head of security for Big Sky, the Big Sky development.
Okay.
Right. I guess I don't know, but he wants me to call him back on this, which I feel like the flavor of this is going to be but we need regulation, so we have certified people doing this. You know what my answer is going to be? If that's what the concern is, it's going to be, you know what? If you want people trained to a certain standard, you train them, or people can develop their own schools
to train them.
You can get a certificate from that school.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the state saying, yep, it's kosher, he's good. Because guess what? The state's not good at that either.
No.
So, reputation is a big factor when it comes to you want to be libertarian or small Republican. Reputation and contracts and personal property, baby.
We have some good, I think it's up in the Flathead area, but we do have good private training facilities already that you can go to as a guest already. And
that's great for private industry, and these schools.
And there's been 2 or 3 classes that I have gone to for advanced training in firearms and security. I
think the only thing I put in here is if you want a firearm, you have to do fingerprints or something. I think there's a little regulation in even my law.
Whoa, fingerprints?
Yeah, so right now you actually have to have fingerprints to be a security guard.
Which I've had fingerprints for to being a teacher.
I try to avoid it
educator.
as much as possible.
My fingerprints are all over the place. But I actually got better classes from the private institutions than I did from the state
because they have a reputation they have to maintain, or they don't get to be in business.
Yeah.
It's Adam Smith's invisible hand.
Yeah.
You do a good job or you fail.
All right, did we cover them all? Holy cow!
Well, at this point, I know I probably have more since you made this list. But.
Probably. Do you have more? Do you think?
Probably. I'm sure I do. I have 25 or 30, and I'm still developing some ideas, but I kind of ran out of steam. So I've been busy on a home remodel project of a bathroom for what did I say tonight? 110 hours.
We are now speaking to Al. Al is a great carpenter from Home Improvement.
Hey, did you hear? I don't know which one, but one of the cast of Home Improvement. I got a news alert. Got arrested for domestic abuse or something, today or yesterday or something.
It was probably Al. Well, it was really great having you on. Thank you. I love what you do. I'm really glad you can come on. I think you're one of the honest Puritans out there that really do look objectively and work for the people of Great Falls and for the state of Montana.
Well, I try. Thank you. Yeah,
I really do.
Trying to level that playing field between individuals and their government.
My good friend Jeremy Trebas, we have a great friendship as well. So we'll see you next time on the Undercurrent. Have a great night.